Well, we have enough for a quorum.
We have a quorum, yeah.
All right, I guess we'll go ahead and get the meeting started then. Hopefully Beth will be able to make it. Good morning to everyone. We'll do a call to order. We have an acknowledgement of quorum. Last meeting, we did do an election of the bid officers. Unfortunately, at that time, we were not aware that Tracy was not going to be able to stay on as a board member due to other personal obligations. He did talk to Mayor Ongert, and he was going to be replacing himself with his wife, Rebecca. That was okayed by the mayor, and therefore we welcome her. However, we can't just put her into an elected position. Hi, Jane. I'm sorry, I didn't even see you sneak in. Good morning. Thank you. We can't put her just automatically into an elected position, so we are going to have to go back into an election for, I believe, do we have to do all of them, or do we just go through to the vice president?
Just the vice president.
Okay.
Assuming that Larry and you want to stay in your positions that were elected last week, that you don't want to switch up. So.
And
so
okay,
we would just need we would need a nomination.
A nomination.
Or someone to volunteer, either way.
For vice president.
Correct.
Okay.
Or multiple people. I mean, you could have 2 or 3 people wanting to do it.
Okay, so at this point, does anyone want to step up and nominate themselves for vice president?
And I'm happy to continue to do it, by the way, and I could do a little summary about my background.
Here, go ahead and speak.
Happy to do it. This is so very formal. And I'm happy to do a bit of a summary for those I haven't met yet, but understanding the roles and responsibilities, it shouldn't be a problem unless there's someone else who's really excited to do it, which I didn't glean, by the way, during the last meeting when people were raising their hands. Okay. Oh, well, should I do a little intro?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rebecca Sarwat, it's great to be here with you all today. In addition to investing in downtown on an ongoing basis, I do live in West Bend. Tracy and I have 2 girls, and my day job is actually I'm a vice president of HR for Baxter International based out of Deerfield, so I flex my time between here and there. Spent the last 20-ish years working in HR leadership and executive positions at places like GE and Johnson Controls and Kimberly-Clark. And I have been on boards before and have leadership responsibility of budgets today of about $250 million. Great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Our budget is not quite $250 million, just a smidget shorter than that, but okay. All right, so anybody else up for vice president? No? Okay, then if everyone is okay with Rebecca being elected vice president, I guess we don't have to use the little slips. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks.
That made that very easy. All right. Then it's never been official that John kind of moved into the position, but we've never officially said that John is the bid board executive director, so we need to approve him. And considering there's nobody else that has come on and said, could I please do this job, we would like to, I guess we just have to approve that. So all those in favor of approving John as the bid board executive director, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? So John, you are officially the bid board executive director. Do you approve?
Sure. Yep.
All right. All right. So the election of the officers is good to go. Then if anybody has any questions or comments on the minutes from the last meeting of May 6th, otherwise if we could have an approval, well, are there any comments on the minutes from last meeting? Okay. If not, if someone could make a motion for the approval of those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Board approves the meetings, regular meeting from the minutes from the meeting for May. All right, then moving on to the financial report, the water meter discussion.
Yes, so last month we brought to you some information about the water meters downtown. So just as a quick summary, there are 5 meters downtown. 2 of them are paid for by parks. The other 3 were assigned about June of last year to the bid board. And throughout 24, I think there was 3 payments that went in, and then there was another payment to the water utility for the first quarter of this year. We should be expecting, I think, the second quarter coming up. The water bills obviously fluctuate based on the usage of the water. The winter months, the bill is minimal, but there is a standard charge. So even if for all of you who have a water bill at home, you'll see that there is a sort of standard flat fee. So literally no water comes through the pipes. There still is a bill to pay. And then obviously the summer months, those bills will fluctuate based on if we have a really wet summer or if we have a really dry summer in terms of that. The spigots were installed mostly for roots and branches use so that they had been carrying water from home in the backs of their cars and trunks and bottles to water all the plants downtown. With the reconstruction, the meters were put in. One of the meters will probably be used by our contractor for, they're watering the plants downtown in 2 ways. Last year it was just from one large truck. They actually have 2 pieces of equipment. One would be on the back of a pickup truck. Those will water most of the trees and the big pots, but they have a smaller ATV that has a water reservoir on it. And so they'll fill that up at the parks, but instead of going all the way back to parks, they will use one of the spigots. So we suggested the one by the Antidote would be the one they could use. It's pretty accessible. The other 2 are one by the hardware store and one at the Circle. So what we had proposed last month was to continue to have the bid pay for the 1 meter. Staff suggested maybe the other 2 meters be considered part of the contribution to Roots and Branches. You'll recall back in March, Roots and Branches asked for another $500 for plants. I've talked to them actually prior to the last meeting. They spent all of their money that you had allocated in March. We also had a conversation about how your budget's actually in the late summer, early fall, September, and that they really should plan for their request so that it's actually in the budget rather than coming towards the beginning of your budget and then having to figure out. So we did have a conversation about trying to figure that out. So I guess we kind of have two items to talk about. I guess one is this year's cost for the meters. Do you guys want to just incur that? And then as we go through budget discussions in August and September, you would consider that maybe part of the contribution to Roots and Branches. Do you want to see about having the names changed on the meters and owner, the actual billable part? So that's sort of a question. The other part I should let you know about, which I didn't know about until Ashley got the bill about this 20 days ago, there is actually a utility charge because those meters are not in a building. They actually will freeze and they can get damaged through the winter. So in the fall, all of the outside meters are actually removed by the water utility. In the spring, they're put in. There's no charge to take them out, but to put them back in, there's a $50 charge per meter. So that's another $150 per those 3 meters each spring to have the meters put back in. So the water meter there's a cost to them, and I guess I'm looking for your opinions or directions. We've thrown a couple ideas out there. There's probably another 4 or 5 ways to, slice this particular cake or whatever. So,
Were we always paying for that?
no. So the meters were installed with the reconstruction of Main Street.
Okay.
There was a request to have more meters, so Roots and Branches could have the spigots. I think there used to only be 2. Now there's 5. And there was a decision prior to me that the bid would be responsible for those 3. So when I called the water utility, that's where they were told last approximately June to put the bid as the payee on those 3 meters. So like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, you were paying for the water from June of last year till currently.
So I think then we have to decide as an organization if we want to pay for that as a separate fee or if we want to include that just as one donation to Roots and Branches because they're the ones that are using that. So we have to figure out if we want to say, just have that as regular fee paid to the city, correct? Or if we want to add that in as a,
So, okay, I'll try to, okay, so there's one is we can just pay it, we'll take it out of an account and it will just be an expense of the bid. We could pay one of the meters as an expense of the bid because the contractor for the hanging baskets will probably use that spigot more on a every other day basis. The other two are probably going to only be used by Roots and Branches, so you could just absorb that and pay it, or you could say, you know, we're going to consider this part of our donation to Roots and Branches, so on that Roots and Branches line in your budget in terms of you had like $900 and then you added an extra $500, you could just literally say, okay, add another $500 to it, so it's approximately, $2,000 is the contribution to Roots and Branches, just so that your members as well as Roots and Branches has a comprehensive understanding of what support you're providing from that perspective. The third option is a little more tricky, is if you guys say, you know what, nobody asked us to have our name on these meters. We weren't aware of these meters. We think these meters should be in somebody else's name, whether it's the city or Roots and Branches or something like that. If that third option is one, then I'm going to have to, go back and figure out how to manage that. I don't think Roots and Branches will be very happy about it. They weren't very happy with the idea that the $500 you provided them in March might actually be used for water, because they're like, well, we already paid for our plants. So I think they would probably prefer you this year at least to just put it into the bucket of another potential $500 that Roots and Branches would be supported by from the bid. And then if you do that option, we can have it as a bigger conversation in terms of budgetary things when we get to August and September. And maybe I'm not being clear with the three options.
John, is this fee, does that include the water, or is this just for the meters, or what?
So the meter fee when you use no water is somewhere in the upper 30s. I think it's like $32 or $38 or something like that. And then there's the cost of the water. So the calculation that I put together was basically each meter could potentially be about $250 a year. So I was thinking for 2 meters that mostly would be used by Roots and Branches, that's about $500. The other meter over by the Antidote, if we assign that to the bid, that would be $250. And then in addition, I learned about this extra $50 fee. So actually 1 meter is about $300 to operate for the year. So it would be about $600, almost $900, I guess. Now that's also, I'm assuming, so the June bill last year was very low, and then we actually had a much higher bill for the end of summer because those meters were installed. So I made some assumptions that we would actually see that the bill that we got third quarter of last year, I assumed we would also get second quarter just because it hadn't been installed yet. So could my numbers be a little high? Maybe, but if we have a really dry summer, there could be much more water usage, and if it rains every 3 days, maybe nobody's actually pulling any water out of it.
Hey, John, just my history lesson questions. But if there wasn't an alignment beforehand on the spigots and the utilization and the ownership of them, does this board have the right to say we'll be accountable for one only, and then what would happen to the remainder that are downtown that were installed?
I think the interesting part here is that the meters were assigned to the bid, but the bid didn't know that you had this cost until like 45, 60 days ago. Meters at the water utility can be changed. So when you move from your house to another and someone else moves in, it goes from, Mr. Smith to Mrs. Jones or whatever. So there isn't anything complicated from the water utility perspective. They could switch the billing to someone else. It's just the politics and logistics of who's going to pay for that is the more complicated part if it's not the bid.
And you
But
couldn't just terminate, like, turn it off and then keep one on, and then utilization. Because I know the past discussion around the several $1,000s for watering, that was just labor and not water. So if there had to have been some sort of math exercise.
My conversation with Roots and Branches is that they had traditionally been bringing the water. There was not a water source downtown. People were bringing their own water. What they communicated to me is they have an older group of volunteers. They have a hard time carting all the water, that sort of thing. And so the spigots were really to ease their maintenance of the planting beds downtown that their volunteers maintain. Now, of course, the flower bed that's right in front of the hardware store, the spigot's right there, so it's super easy. But there are flower beds that are maybe another 200, 300, 400 feet. They still got to get the water from that spigot across the street or down the block, or so there is still some carting of water, so to speak, from those spigots. And my understanding is some people have been using the spigots. Others, just it's easier for them. They just have always put the water in buckets in their trunk, and they still bring it downtown. So it seems like the volunteers all have a different perspective on what they would like to do. So
I like option number 2.
Go ahead. Morning. A little bit.
Mic on?
should be green, I think.
Green, there we go.
There we go.
So, I know, Larry, you were part of these discussions very early on when we started, maybe 2 years in advance of the reconstruction. Were you on the committee, the bid committee that helped with the?
Transportation
Yeah.
board, yeah.
So the water spigots were brought to the city as an addition to, the reconstruction project from the bid board. I believe that's why that was assigned to the bid board as responsibility, to provide this water for all your plants and everything else. So it was very early on in the discussion when these were requested to be installed in construction. So just a kind of little history on, I think that's why it was assigned to the bid, the meter responsibility.
Yeah, it was never spelled out that way, but I could see that happening.
Yeah, I guess it came from the bid as far as like, we would like to see this, we would like to see that, when we started the design process. So just a little bit on where that started from. So I don't know if there's any other questions on it I could try to answer, but.
I'm fine.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I think we're lucky to have Roots and Branches come down and volunteer and take care of all these plants. I don't know if there's any advantage to leaving the meters in our name or putting some in their name. I mean, it looks like the onus is gonna be on us eventually, either way,
I mean,
to pay
I
it,
would.
because you're not gonna get Roots and Branches.
I mean,
pay
I
for
would.
it.
I would just, from a optics perspective, I would just say that I would classify at least 2 of the meters as just sort of part of your donation to Roots and Branches. That's about $600. We can find that money in our budget. That's not a big problem. And then from a line item, we can just indicate that. So, and then going through the budget process in August and September, that would just be a part of the consideration. And so instead of, the bid saying, oh, we contributed $900 or $1,400 to Roots and Branches, it's going to be closer to, $2,000 or something like that from that perspective. And we can try to keep track. Each meter's separate, so we can keep track of its usage. Again, it's the second year of them, so my numbers, I'll admit, are they could be a little high if there's not a lot of water usage, but Roots and Branches we don't have anything from last year to actually know how many times the different taps were actually used. So
I guess I just feel if we're going to be forced to pay for water, then it's going to have an effect on how much we can donate to Roots and Branches for plants, and because we have to pull it from somewhere. So, because do we have it in our budget to pay X amount of dollars just for water again
We can make it work for this year, I believe.
for this year, but forever?
And then I think that's the conversation.
That we
go
need to-
in August, September, we need to have that conversation as you're trying to allocate different things for different, we're gonna have some fixed cost, and then there's, some other cost of, let's say we're talking about Christmas wreaths on Fifth Street or something like that. You only have so much money, so it might be the difference of, you're buying 6 or you're buying 8 or something like that. So, there is some flexibility in the budget as terms of that. It, is the cost of these meters going to really affect the budget significantly? Probably not. It's a smaller portion of the budget, so. And after this year, having a full calendar year, by the time we get to budgeting in September and August, I think we'll have a better sense of the actual usage of those meters.
Okay, so you're just suggesting that this year we go ahead and pay for it and then discuss it when it's the regular budget time to figure out, because we'll have a lot more.
I think you'll be able to
Information.
I think you'll be able to put it into a bigger picture and a bigger
Okay.
goals and objectives. And
All right. As a board, are we okay with that? Yes?
I'm fine.
Okay. Okay.
thanks. Okay.
All right. Okay, so then that goes on with the whole water meter spring installation then, right?
Yep.
That would,
Both
okay.
of them. Yep.
All right, and then the full bid board financial report?
Yeah, so in your report, we have the same 3 sheets that we gave you last month. So the first one is a summary. It basically lists all the accounts. You'll see what's available, what's encumbered, and then we've provided a more detailed analysis as of May 19th. That tells you a little bit more about some of the line items, those types of things. We will keep that up to date as we have more meetings, but that sort of just gives you a little bit more, detail behind the bigger numbers from that perspective. I don't think there's anything particularly unusual. I will talk more about one of the line items when we get down to reports to the Facade Committee. There's a financial thing I'll mention there, but otherwise I don't think there's too much unusual on this financial report. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions? Okay, is there then, if there's no questions, if we have a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, agenda items for consideration, the bid board bylaws purchasing power.
Yeah, so this one, when we started looking at the bylaws, because they're obviously new to me, and we were also starting to look into, the different president, vice president, all those types of things. I came across the language in Article 7 that talks about the role of the executive director and basically authorizing invoices and paying bills and things like that. It currently says the executive director may approve purchases of less than $500. So when I read that, basically you guys budget, for instance, for the hanging baskets. Well, that's more than $500. So technically, what should from my reading of it is that every time one of those bills comes in, I would have needed to put it on a bid board agenda. You would have had to approve it because it would have been over $500. But you've already sort of approved it in the budget, and how it had been operating is if it was a budgeted line item, the executive director had been approving those, moving them forward. Staying with the current language, we'll stretch things out. Timing will become more complicated, particularly with like plants and other types of things. So we were recommending changing the language to indicate the executive director may approve invoices if they are in accordance with the bid operating plan, which is your operating plan that you adopt every September. from that perspective. And then if something unusual comes up that's not in the operating plan, then we would bring it to you for approval. Does that? So we're just trying to clarify the words to match more what the tradition of operation has actually been.
But John, do we then see line item transactions for accountability? If there
That's
was
what's on the
some
financial
limit?
report we just saw. So yeah, on that financial report we were just looking at, that's where the main financial report, you'll see, it's basically, if you look at the marketing budget, it's 10,000 budgeted. There was actual expenses of 508, and then we have a net available of 9,000. And if you go to, which you didn't get before, was the detailed budget, you'll actually see, maybe I picked a wrong example, but if you go to the detailed one, that's where you start to see more details about, well, actually, the marketing was a bad one, but
That is exactly what I was asking.
landscaping's the one where we've detailed it out. The marketing has been the postcards we sent out for the Facade program and things like that. So they're fairly minor type things. So we could be more detailed or not, but, and obviously if it's a postcard mailing that costs $200, it's under the 500, so we wouldn't have brought it to you, but some of these are pretty, for instance, the 5th and 6th Street cleanup, that was something that you guys had wanted to see done. That's $1,200. So like all those, a lot of these items, if you go back to that detailed sheet, would have been, coming back to the bid. Technically, the Facade Committee issues the approval for those grants, but it's been tradition that if the person meets the qualifications of the grant within the time frame, they get the grant money afterwards. But because most of those are all over $500, we'd have to bring it back to the bid. So the committee's already authorized it, but then before we could release the check, we'd have to bring it back to you to approve it. So you're just creating lots of backs and forths.
Isn't that part of the open meetings law that would have to be reviewed in public, not just by committee?
The budget?
No, the awarding of these grants and,
Well, the grant committee meets, they award the grants, but then they do a report to you all indicating what the
and
grants
that's
were.
approved by the board,
And then yes.
and we authorize the,
Correct, but you don't, I guess maybe that's a bad example. Well, you actually authorize the grant. I guess we would, maybe that original grant language needs to be tweaked at that point from that perspective, but.
see, are we trying to eliminate the back and forth where you have to present?
I guess what I'm trying to say is literally anything under $500, I would have to technically, the way the language is written, will have to come to you. So literally on your agenda, you will start to see tons of bills for anything above $500 that you'll have to approve. And so the problem starts to become is we put, for instance, one of the items that you guys asked for is to not try to meet every single month. This policy will probably require us to meet every single month just to approve bills because we're going to have plant bills and all sorts of things all through the spring that are going to be coming in to pay. And so in order to, some of those things have to be paid for before, or a down payment or potential other things. So it makes for a lot more, I mean, even our city council doesn't have that kind of detailed list of things that they're approving in great detail.
I feel by having the financial report in the meetings that we do have, this is us approving it, so I think we're fine in allowing you to do that. I think where we ran into a problem is, not even a problem, is the thing that you made us aware of, that we didn't even know that the spigots had gotten assigned to us, you know what I mean? And I think you bringing that to our attention is what's really important, is that all of a sudden the bid is paying for something that we didn't even know we were paying for. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid. And so those little things might come up, but I don't foresee that being an issue if you bring them up to us and like, hey, did you guys know you were paying for, lights on 8th Avenue? And you know what I mean? Like, just as a bad example, but just, I think if you brought it to our attention, then it's just that awareness that we just don't want to be paying for things that we shouldn't be paying for. And if you brought it to our attention, I think we're fine, because we're approving a budget and you've now already made it much more clear than it once was. We're supposed to be good stewards of the money that's coming into the bid. We want to make sure that we're using the money towards good things for the downtown and bringing people in the downtown, making the downtown pretty. And, so I think that that's our job, is to approve it and make it good. But I don't think any one of us has the time, energy to sit around and approve a bid or a bill for $50.
Right, so for instance, when we get to talk about spiders, if we find a contractor who's gonna take care of the spiders, then I'm gonna have to bring that, you already have it budgeted for it.
Right.
But then I'd have to bring that dollar amount to you because it's gonna be over $500, you'll have to approve it. That will delay the guy getting the spiders. I could approve it and get the guy out there to get rid of the spiders quicker than waiting potentially 20 days till a meeting or something.
So you're just looking to get the wording changed, like it's,
I'm just
you
getting-
can
I'm
approve
just-
500 or less unless already previous approved.
Yep, we're just basically asking that last sentence to be changed to, the executive director may approve invoices if they are in accordance with the bid operating plan. So if it's in the plan that you adopted in September, then we could approve it. If for some bizarre reason something comes up in May or June that's a whole new thing, and then we would bring it to you, you guys would essentially be at one of these financial sections of the agenda approving staff to move forward with some other additional costs. Or maybe you're shifting the operating plan dollars somehow.
Okay. Chrissy, you want to make a motion?
No, it just saying that makes sense, like he can approve 500 or less unless it was already previous discussed. It just, he needs that wording changed. It makes sense.
Then we would need a motion.
I think we have a comment.
Yes. Oh, sorry, thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm in favor. I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
For approval. If you'd like to second it, I welcome it.
Second that.
Did you have discussion?
I just
Rick?
had one additional comment. So if I'm to understand correctly, in the previous language, the $500 threshold was to probably prevent overspending or frivolous or exorbitant things. But now with the changed language, if it's in accordance with that operating plan, we'd allow you to do that. So in the operating plan, do we set thresholds about like when it would be too much? Do you follow what I'm saying?
So in the operating plan, you have generalized dollar amounts for like
Yeah.
marketing and facade, and then you have some detailed items underneath that. So
Yeah.
those are sort of the thresholds. Yes.
So we would define those in the operating plan, and then you would be working within that. Something costs $600, but you could get something else for less and still budget within it. We would be giving you the ability to do that. Is that correctly phrased?
So the language we propose would be, there wouldn't really a dollar amount. So if it's 500 or 2,000, or it's a $6,000 bill or something like that, then staff, or I would just approve it because it is already marked in the operating plan.
All right. Thanks.
And it's essentially, the language is just matching what has been happening.
You're right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the downtown cleaning program quotes.
Yeah, so last month we talked a little bit about spiders and spider webs and other cleaning type things. So staff had a quick meeting with community development, engineering, parks, public works, building maintenance to kind of evaluate the situation. We reached out to a number of contractors, particularly exterminators. All of them had indicated it was not something that they typically do. Their services are usually with a building. They spray around the outside of a building, inside a building, but not kind of in the outdoors or in an open space. So nobody was really quite interested from that perspective. The one thought we did have was that we could hire someone who could power wash the walkway, and that would be the first spot, is to try to get rid of, there's probably a number of years of spider webs. I mean, they're not all fresh. There's just spider webs hang around. Clean it all up, power wash it, make it clean. There is actually a product that we use at the city in parks buildings and other buildings that has worked very well. It goes on as a liquid, and so the thought was to put that then onto the steel and the other components of that walkway. What we don't know is if we were to put it on, if we cleaned it up in July, early August, and we were to put the treatment onto that area in about mid-August, which is about when the spider season comes. What we don't know is how long that first treatment will last. Will it last all the way till November? Will we have to retreat again sometime in September or the 1st of October? So with the particular plan that I'm kind of proposing, the first year we'll have to, it'll be a little bit of an experiment of what works, doesn't work, what those timelines are, and then we'll actually have an understanding of it so that then we can probably have a better system probably next year. So I guess I'm trying to minimize any expectations that there won't be any spiders, because that treatment might only have a lifespan outdoors for so many weeks and then have to be retreated, and that's kind of, it will be one of those things where we have to be like, oh, the spiders are back, it's time to retreat, or nope, there isn't any, it's still working from that perspective. And so we could also get the bridges power washed, that kind of thing. We did discuss the bridge under 33. That one's a little harder because the area under the pathway could probably be power washed, but the span going over the river is so great that there's probably going to be a portion that we aren't going to be able to reach underneath that part of the bridge. In addition, the treatment for the spiders on the bridges being over the water body, I don't think is probably something that probably is going to be great. So I think we can probably, take care of the walkway, which I think is probably the worst, and then figure out like kind of a power washing scheme to knock the spider webs down. The question I have with the power washing is we could probably do it early here in the summer. They'll probably come back in the fall, or do we actually say that we do the power washing like around, early September, just as the spiders are starting to kind of come out, and so it kind of knocks them kind of down off the bridges, and then they might kind of come back in a couple weeks, but maybe the power washing just kind of makes it so it's not quite as bad through the fall. Again, kind of a trial experiment thing. And then we would, I don't have costs for any of these things, but if you think this is a good direction to go, then we'll, put those costs together. The power washing of the walkway is going to be a little bit expensive because you're going to actually have to have a lift that comes in from both Main Street and the Riverwalk. There'll be a scissors lift because they're going to have to come in and kind of cantilever over that staircase. So it's a pretty tall space. It's not the easiest.
Leona, go ahead.
I just want to mention, if you're going to be power washing in that walkway between Hussars and the Bend, we got to be careful with the historical property of the building.
Well aware of that, yep. It would be a light, we don't need anything too excessive to get rid of the spider webs.
I would say to go ahead and at least get the quotes on it, John, because I think it is an issue that comes up a lot. So it can't hurt to get the quotes on it, because I know that a lot of us here do hear quite a bit about the spiders.
Yep. The other option is to have somebody on a lift and they would hand remove the spider webs with, like a
Hand
wand.
remove?
Well, I mean, you'd have to take a wand and you would literally be, they're
Hand remove? Who would do such a thing?
people who love spiders.
God. Count me out.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, if you have spiders on your eaves at your house, you just take the broom and just knock them down. I mean, so it'd be similar, except it's way up there and it's on a lift. And so, I mean, that's the other option is if we can't find someone who wants to power wash, we would have to find a company that would be willing to sweep them off, more or less.
Yeah, let you get some quotes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'm guessing that, Peggy, you're not going to be
No,
there?
Peggy's not volunteering for that one.
Okay.
No, any
All right,
other
well,
thing but that.
We'll move forward with
Thank
trying
you.
to figure that one out. All right.
All right, lights and decorations discussion.
Yeah, so actually Larry just told me this because I was trying to figure out what the lights and budget decorations consist of because I don't have detail other than the large dollar amount. Larry said, I guess does the whole 20,000 go towards putting
Not
the Christmas?
entirety, but most of it.
Okay, so do you guys know what your intention was? Like, is the tree 15,000? And because I know in the past you have bought the downtown decorations for like the wreaths and things like that. So I guess this was sort of a topic I just put on to like discuss. Like, I mean, we could certainly go back into the budget and look at bills from last year to figure out what the costs of the Christmas tree and other things were, and then I could back in and say, okay, well that cost 17,000 last year. It's going to cost 17,000 this year. That means there's 3,000 left in that budget. But
Yeah, I believe the 20,000 was, at least when it was with David J. Frank, it was for the putting the tree up and taking it down.
okay,
And then we saved, I thought, like $3,000 by going to Bling.
I think we did. It was a little bit of savings if I remember
Right.
Carissa telling
So
me
then,
correctly.
so then we would have $3,000 extra dollars
Okay.
somewhere. Yeah.
Well, then we'll back into the numbers. I think everyone was comfortable last year with the contractor that we had. I think it went well. So if there's no opposition, I will contact them to make sure that they're on board for this year. Make sure I can get a good 2025 number from them, and then we'll be able to know what's kind of left over. I guess the second question I had is, I know that you guys a year or two ago bought the reefs. Was there any? Carissa had mentioned maybe purchasing more, but I don't know what line item that was thought of, and did you guys have any goals or anything like that?
I feel that the private sector helped us out last year with that beautiful big thing that was over by Sal's, by the Pocket Park there, where you could like take photos. That
Yep,
was 2
that was
years.
2 years. Yep.
So I mean, I'm certainly open to any discussion here, but I feel like the downtown has like a great amount of Christmas decorations. I feel that, I mean, I don't feel like we need to purchase any more at this point unless anybody else has any comments on that.
I just didn't know if we had the conversation with the bid board about, the facade board about trying to share more facade grants south of Walnut Street. So I've heard it'd be nice in the future to have more hanging baskets on, Fifth and that, so just not all on Main Street. So I guess that's where I was throwing it out that, the decorations that are south of Walnut are probably our oldest decorations in town, at least from last year. So I didn't know if you guys were thinking to kind of go beyond Main Street at any point.
So you're saying if we have leftover money from the Christmas, that we could then spend that on expanding in the summertime with the baskets and things out?
Yeah. So I guess, yeah. So I'm gonna take this conversation. I'm gonna say, all right, all the things I said, I'm planting seeds for you to all think about. So when it gets to be August and September,
Right.
we can actually think about that for the next next budget. The other component I want to mention is I don't know what time of year you purchase those wreaths, but most of the time, the winter wreaths, snowflakes, those things, they go on sale in January. So you buying them in the summer, for instance, is the most expensive time to buy them. You can actually get a little bit more bang for your buck to buy them after the season. It's kind of like buying wrapping paper after Christmas for the next year. So I think let me give you some little bit better numbers, and then when we get to budget discussions in August, we can figure out what that might look like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But that was super helpful. I'm glad I put this on because I had questions, and Larry totally answered most of them for me. So Thanks.
Yeah, because if we're good with the Christmas and we can save some money there, I think the board would be, great with expanding some of the, summer decorations beyond the main street. I
Yep.
think that would be awesome.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. All right, then, number 4, marketing.
Yeah, so the marketing, this is a similar question. So there might be information out there that I'm just not privy to or know about. There's $10,000 in marketing. We've spent about $508, and that relates to postage and other types of smaller expenses. And so we're getting to be about halfway through the year, and I was not part of that budget discussion last August, September, in terms of what that marketing should be used for. A couple thoughts out there that I had, but they may or may not align with what you guys were thinking about. We have the Downtown Association, so in some communities, some of the roles of the Downtown Association and the BID are actually merged together. We're kind of unique that we have 2 different associations, and so those responsibilities are sort of divided. So in terms of helping market downtown and Main Street and the BID, that might be something, could be in the Downtown Association's wheelhouse. They could push a little bit more. They have the list of all the retailers and things like that. Also, I have seen in other bids, the bid might bring a consultant in to help shopkeepers kind of re-image their store or teach them a little bit more about marketing and how to display products, that kind of thing. There also are consultants that can come in and help people with window displays and show them, how to change them and make them pop in the evening or during the daytime so that their products and wares can really, be impactful and kind of be, kind of showstopper type window displays. So those are a few things I threw out there, but I'd like to hear if you guys have any thoughts of what you intended those funds to actually go towards. And of course, we could always just discuss this a little bit more during the August, September budgeting session too.
I think that's probably a better idea. I do worry about putting money towards just one group of people within a bid district, because then you're always alienating another group. You have a lot of businesses down here that don't have storefronts. And I do worry about alienating them and them feeling, well, we're giving, I think of some of maybe the bankers who have a bigger space and they're putting more money into the bid, but they don't have a storefront that would benefit from something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know how that would go over.
I think it's probably more of a multiple year thought process.
Okay.
So you might, if you brought somebody in that did storefronts, that would be more for retailers that sell goods versus somebody who does services. Maybe that's, somebody to help that way. And then maybe the next year it's more some sort of assistance to people who are more service-oriented or
Right.
something like that. Maybe the third year it's more expertise in restaurants or something. So it might be one of those things where you can't do everything in 1 year because you don't have the money, but it might be a longer-term plan of let's help this and then help that and that kind of thing. With the storefront windows, if you don't have a storefront window, they can't help you. But if you have a storefront window that's for a dress shop or a restaurant or a financial institution, I actually have seen some of those. I've seen a financial institution that they do a storefront window. I mean, some just put some chairs in the window, but I've seen one where they literally change it out it was like, wow, every time I would go by, I'd be like, oh, it was a very unusual situation for them, but so I don't think it always have to, there may be some blurred lines too, possibly,
Okay.
so.
Peggy, I'm sure you participate, but perhaps we could take a look at the strategic planning groups, body of work, and then John, to your point, a 3-year marketing roadmap that would complement the strategy of downtown in addition to utilizing the funds properly.
We did the strategic planning, and I was going to say maybe bring the results of that back prior, maybe the month prior to us putting the budget together, so that the board could relook at that and come up with some ideas and questions for us putting the budget together. This is what people wanted us to do with the funds. so that when we are putting our budget together, we bring some of those things to the forefront again?
We'll resend it out to you. So
Yeah.
it's fresh. Yeah, we'll send it out this week so that you have it fresh, and then you'll have it for
Yeah,
the next 2 meetings, yeah.
okay.
But there's a lot of good I think that survey, there's a lot of good information, and I think it was fairly cohesive. It wasn't like kind of flatlined, and there was just sort of, everybody just kind of wanted a little bit of everything. There was definitely areas that had a lot more interest than others. So.
Not to go off the subject, just wondering if there's been any updates on what's going on with the gazebo.
Yeah, so the gazebo, as you know, the Downtown Association bought the temporary gazebo that was installed. And I believe Parks, along with administration and insurance, are working on it. My understanding is the cost of replacement of the gazebo exceeds the insurance that both the city and or the person who smashed into it actually has. So when you put those two together, there's still a shortfall from that cost. So they're working behind the scenes to work through any other options and things like that. So it is an active discussion amongst all of those different people, as well as the insurance companies and that kind of thing. So,
But it's not something that would be resolved in this calendar year?
probably not, no. Yep. And then we have had a discussion with the private sector group about a downtown, so in addition to the master plan, coming up with a lighting plan for downtown. And then we've started to have conversations about potential funding of, instead of a high-level plan, it would probably be a plan that's a little bit more detailed that would lead into construction for the redesign of Old Settlers Park, as well as the 5th and 6th Street areas to the south and to the west of Main Street.
Okay.
But those are just preliminary, a couple phone calls and some emails, but there seems to be general support at this point, but nothing completely firmed up. There's still a little bit more conversations that need to occur. So in terms of the gazebo and Old Settlers Front, we have a couple directions that conversations are going.
All right. The outdoor speaker update.
Yeah, so the outdoor speaker update. So I just wanted to put a few facts in front of you. So I know that the $50,000 amount was tossed around, that the speakers cost $50. The bid contributed $40, and City Communications paid $7,970 for a total of $48,820. As you know, we've been talking to the provider who installed and provided the speakers. Part of the complication of that with regard to, from a legal perspective, is that we didn't enter into a contract. We rather, staff approved an invoice or a quote. So when you enter into a contract, the contracts typically say, like, if there's ever a disagreement, this is the county where that disagreement will be filed, like in a lawsuit, those types of things. And when you just approve a quote, it's just really between two people. So that's adds a little bit more complexity to it. And so basically, to give you a little bit more clarity, so in the fall of 2024, staff prior to me, as well as our legal office, started discussions with the contractors. And then that handoff between staff changes kind of fell off in the discussions, but that has been re-engaged in May of 25. So Ian, our city attorney, is working with another attorney firm here in town that specializes in these types of issues. So they have been meeting, coming up with a plan for that. And then we've also had meetings with administration and IT from that perspective. And IT is actually talking to other consultants to see if the current speakers we have could actually be reused. So the question is, we know they weren't working, but is it the speakers? Is it the main devices that actually send the signal out to the speakers? Is it that if you had the speakers only within a block, everything would work, but because of the distance, it's too great? from that perspective. The other item we looked at is there was a choice to go wireless. Is it really the issue with wireless? Should we go back to a wired system? The room in the Centrum building that has the equipment is on the west side of the street. I talked to our engineer to find out, how hard would it be to take a wire out of the Centrum building and then into a duct bank and then go, wire up into each light post to a wired meter. Found out that the duct banks on the west side of the street were taken out of the construction project, so there's only duct banks on the east side. So there are empty conduits on the east side of the street where you could run a wire through. There aren't any on the west side under the sidewalk. So the complicated there is now if you're going to stick with the Centrum building, you have to get across the street into those duct banks, or you have to, if you're going to go hardwire, you have to find another location on the east side of the street to put that in. Ideally, if Old Sellers Park was redesigned and a building with bathrooms and things, that would be a perfect building to actually have a utility closet for this type of equipment, and then we wouldn't have to rent or borrow space from a property owner or something like that. It would be with, in the parks or city-owned buildings. So that's something for us to think about too. So there's conversations between two attorneys firms going on with the supplier of the equipment and the installation. We're looking to see if the equipment we have can actually, if any of it can be reused. And so we're digging into all those pieces.
But the realistic probability of the bid board seeing the $48,000 is?
When I speak to Ian, if we ended up going to court, it probably because the contractors, I think in Nebraska or North Dakota or something, and then we're in Wisconsin, it's not clear where you would file the court case, so it'd probably go to federal court, and the court costs would probably be at least 3/4 of that dollar amount, and we probably wouldn't get court cost reimbursed. So it's a lot of effort and money spent to get a small bit of money. I think Tim and I have talked. That comment hasn't been lost on staff. I don't have an answer for that. That's something that we will attempt to figure out in the next couple months as we work on the city budget.
Can we sell it?
That is another option to see if we could sell it and get something out of it, and IT would be looking at that too, to see if we could put it out on, a website or something like that.
Okay. It just seems to keep coming back, and I just wonder why at what point do we just say sell it and get rid of it?
It's ours. That's an option. We could just sell it, get rid of it. If we get $20,000 for it, then that's probably better than $20,000 on attorney fees.
Yeah,
So
I
that's a
don't
good option.
Hi, Chief.
If you don't mind me throwing some.
No, go ahead.
Throwing some backup your way. So here's where we're at with it. We are working very hard, trying to find an engineering consultant to tell us what are the value of those speakers that we have. Can they be utilized in a system? If that's the case, our demand letter then becomes very clear to the company to say, we need this fund amount to make it whole, to make the system work, right? So if they say $20,000 will make this system work, then our demand letter is very clear. Right now, we don't necessarily have a great demand letter other than take the speakers back and refund the entirety of our fund, which we can't because, as you know, we altered the speakers. We've painted them, we've done those things. So we're working through it. He's being modest. John has spent a tremendous amount of time working through with our IT to try to find a solution. Here's what we can guarantee you. You've invested in a speaker system. There will be a speaker system downtown. We'll have to play the long game because we want to do it right. We don't want to jump into another system that becomes problematic. So much like the gazebo conversation last night at council, we accepted about $56,000 from the insurance company. That's probably all we're getting from the insurance company. We're seeking other avenues to try to reclaim more money, but quite honestly, it's blood from a stone. There is probably no money. So I think we're still investigating those aspects. Long story to get to. I think Director Jensch put it very well last night that this is where we're at, so now we move forward. This 56 last night is a great seed money piece to look at how do we do it correctly? How do we do it long-term through the plan that John was mentioning, and a complete redesign, public restrooms, all of those things, a new spot for the speakers. How do we get the speakers right so we're not up here in front of you once a year telling you that we've got another problem? So John is on it. He's being modest. He's really been putting time in to figure it out. It's going to be long-term, but the bottom line is you invested in a speaker system. You're getting a speaker system. The city accepts its culpability for before our time. Not having a contract, buying off a quote wasn't the way we do things. I was appreciative of your conversation earlier on the financial maneuverings of the bid, because that's exactly why. You put a system in place to make sure these kind of things don't happen. So there were consequences for those actions within the city staff. One of our employees no longer here mainly because of that. But now it's time to move forward. So
Right.
lots of words to tell you. Someday you're getting a speaker system.
Okay.
Will it be by Christmas?
No.
Probably not. But maybe we could all carol down there. We'll help you when you're taking the cobwebs.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Okay. All right. No, thanks. All right, we'll move on. The bid facade grant.
Yes, so I just wanted to let you all know, we did have a meeting scheduled for the 17th for the facade committee, but we got no applications for this particular round. Staff did meet with 3 property owners, but they all decided not to move forward with an application. They felt that they had a little bit more work to do. They had ideas, but we talked about how there'll be a new round coming up in a number of months, and I tried to give them as much information so that they could use the next number of months to their benefit to be able to have good applications for the next round. So that $7,500-ish amount, we don't have any applications to hand that off to. So that would roll over into next year's budget cycle for the facade program. And then second thing is, I guess, since we don't have anything to review, does the facade committee actually want to meet on the 17th? I don't have much to update. Of those awards that have been given, the Boys and Girls Club is going forward. I believe they're signing some contracts, so you should see some work happening soon.
Big Brothers, Big Sisters?
Yes, I'm sorry, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, sorry. I did meet with the new architect for Hussar, so he is moving forward with that. From that perspective, he is aware of some other approvals he needs to get from Planning Commission, so he's moving forward with that. So I would hope that he also would be getting those approvals in the next 2 months and then breaking ground this fall, so he could be complete within his time frame. There was a project at the Outbreak that was awarded last June. I think their timeline, I can't remember now if it's the 26th of June or the 28th. They have incomplete building permits at the city for the last year. They haven't done any work. So I would anticipate that that grant will just basically recycle back into the budget from that perspective. So it's a very big project. There's no way they're getting it done in 3 weeks from that perspective. So we'll see where that goes. So we'll have some extra money in the facade program to discuss in August and September during our budget process. So from that perspective, so.
Okay, and then the strategic plan committee?
Yeah, well, one question. Does the facade group, Jane's the chair of it,
I'm just saying if there's really no reason to meet with,
okay, great. Then we won't. All right, sounds good. Yes, and then the strategic planning committee, we did the survey. There was a committee formed and met a number of times. I've had discussions with Larry. The discussion sort of was, I think, in August we would kind of go through that. So I think we might plan for a little bit. We'll try to focus mostly on sort of the thinking, brainstorming of what you want that the strategy be for the next year, and possibly I would even push you guys to think about, maybe like we talked about for marketing, do you have a longer term plan for the next 3 years or something like that? So we'll try to stretch that a little bit from that perspective. So that's sort of where we're going with that. And I or Ashley will send out that survey to you all here either today or tomorrow, so you have that fresh in your inbox.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Once again, we welcome from the Downtown Association and the Bend doing an update, Noelle and Leona. We would love to have you guys come up. Obviously, if anyone was downtown last Thursday, they heard from a very long distance the wonderful success of the block party. If you guys would like to share with us all of that.
All right, there we go. Thank you, everyone. So we are just thrilled at the success of the block party. It was a true collaboration with the Bend and the Downtown West Bend Association, the city. I hope that some of you were there to celebrate with us. Leona and I were chatting a little bit briefly, and we do thank our law enforcement for being there too, and making sure that they are overseeing and making things safe as well, with our volunteers as well. But the count from the roof was around 5,500. Just from them observing the bird's eye view from up there. So it's just phenomenal. It just continues to grow. Last September, it was close to the 5,000 attendee mark as well. So I think the Bend, they did a great job picking those bands. So this was, as you should all know, the kickoff of the 20th anniversary of Music on Main. So it's just become such a signature event in downtown, and the passion for that event just continues to grow with the community and attendees just loving it every Thursday. So for the next 13 Thursdays, it's going to continue. We're back at Old Settlers Park this coming Thursday on the 5th. And I do want to mention real quick about the gazebo. Initially, the Downtown West Bend Association was going to purchase that gazebo. We were standing in front of you a month ago, and I do want to thank Tracy Surwatt, not here, but we had some communications after that meeting, and he said, you know what, we're going to make this happen, private sector, so TRS, Property Management, and Murphy and Proctauser helped to cover the cost for the gazebo, so thank you to them. There will be signage. I had to touch base with Tracy. I know he's working on that. So during this season, there will be those signs to thank those sponsors for the gazebo. But yes, all in all, it was just a wonderful event, a wonderful community event. Anything you want to add, Leona?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the sponsors that made it possible. Of course, the city was a big supporter, as well as Westbury Bank, Pharmacal, and Hansen and Company. So without that extra support as nonprofits, we would not have been able to do that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to move on just to some more summer events. We have the Farmers Market that started on May 17th. So that is kicked off now. We've had 3 Saturdays under our belt. And technically it's the early market, so to speak, in May. So still a lot of vendors, though. But as the summer now kicks off, we're going to see a lot more stalls filled up. Very grateful to the city, those numbers that were painted. I have to report that they have already proven to be very helpful for our vendors that need to know, where their stall is located, even with sending the maps. Actually seeing the number on the curb has been just so beneficial. So grateful to the city for allowing us to do that. And so that is continuing, rain or shine. It's definitely seeing a lot of people come on down. Even for the first rainy day, we still had a very nice crowd of people coming downtown and visiting our beautiful space. We also are in the month of June, which means that we are in the month of Global Fest. So this is a brand new festival through the city of West Bend and their major event grant that we have been planning and working so hard with the committee on for this past year. It's going to be on June 28th and 29th. That's Saturday and Sunday at the end of this month. But we have over 30 nations being represented, whether it's the performances on the stage, the food that's being served both days, and the artisans that are selling beautiful items around the world. So we're really excited to welcome, just people. We've been marketing this a lot, and it's really going to continue to ramp up the month of June. So looking to bring people from out of our community as well that are curious about this new event that has never taken place here before, and showing what a welcoming community that West Bend is. So look forward to seeing many of you. Hope that we'll see you there for that event.
All right, as far as the Bend, we've got a lot going on. This week we have Not Green Day on the 4th, so we're starting our Wednesday series for the summer because we're trying not to interfere with the festivals over the weekends. So that'll be starting in June and occurring through the rest of the summer. We are very excited to be partnering for the Alzheimer's Association's Longest Day fundraising activities and having a comedy team come in, including Charlie Barron's, on June 11th. That is almost sold out, so it's going to be a busy day. June 13th, we have Jim Messina. Very excited. Loggins and Messina, Jim Messina. Yes, the actual, not a tribute. So we are very excited to have Jim and his team coming in, and we're seeing the numbers rising for attendees for that as well. That corresponds with the John Deere festival or conference that is at the county grounds. June 18th, we have Duran Decade. That is a tribute coming in. It's their debut performance, so we're really excited to be the venue that is actually seeing that for them, and the numbers are rising for that. Another busy day. June 21st, we have Comedy Leah and Andrew Ruddick, comedy sibling team. And then on the 24th and the 25th, we have Hotel California. July, just briefly, we kind of tone it down a little bit, but the couple things that we're excited about is we do have in the middle of the month, July 16th, Simple Men and Southern Nights, as well as on July 9th, we're teaming up with the Youth and Family Project to have Christmas in July. So we're excited about that, as well as in August, we're actually teaming up with the library to have a talent show. So looking forward to those activities that we're bringing to the community, and we're so excited and happy that we have partners in all the support that we receive.
Thank you, ladies. Oops, sorry. Thank you, ladies. We really do appreciate you coming every month, and we love to hear what you guys are literally bringing to the downtown. It's fantastic.
Thanks to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's not listed on here. Does anybody have any specific items that they would like to have added to the agenda for next month? All right. Thank you for your time. If we could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Approved. Have a great day.